Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. Well, this is the last available background in the Strathmore Journal. They're all full now with exception of this one, and I'm working on the back of this one here. And because this is quite textured, I'm going to actually texture the back of this one as well. What we're going to do is we're going to put some gesso down in random places quite thickly. I'm going to scrape through it. I'm going to put some bubble wrap on it. Use these pouncers and remove paint, let it dry. Then we're going to go in with some acrylics with watercolor medium, and we're going to put a wash over it to get a resist and get a whole bunch of things happening here. The backgrounds after this point will be on larger sheets of mixed media paper that are going to fit into a chipboard set with binder rings. I'm also going to bring out a few sponges. I've got this massive box of sponges here, and I want something that's going to give me some really cool texture. Ooh, I love this, but the problem is I don't have a bucket big enough to clean it. I like that too. Maybe I'll just stick with this little one here. Okay, something with a lot of texture. I have another one here that I'm going to try, and I cut it square. I'll try that one. And I've got some bubble wrap. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the gesso. Now the gesso we've been putting on a really thin application. This one we're going to go thick. And to go thick, I'm going to use a palette knife because I actually want to carve into it. Don't apply it everywhere, and don't apply it with a brush. Use your palette knife, that way it's going to be random. Gesso acts as a resist as well, so it'll push back any paint that you put on top of it. And for this particular technique, it's best if you have nice, good, thick gesso, not the really watery stuff. There we go. See that? Put that in water. Now I can take a texture tool, and I can just make some straight lines here to get some texture in there. And I'm going to use a big one here, more up. Get me some different lines there. And then I can take my pouncer and I can make some circles. Okay. And use a little one. This will remove just a little bit. Let's see, did it remove enough? No, it didn't. I'm kind of going on it, and I'm kind of, oh yeah, I'm in the way. I'm kind of turning. Okay, so what I'm doing is this. See, little circles. Put that in water right away. And take some bubble wrap. It's starting to dry now, so I'm going to work a little bit faster. You notice I'm not pushing to the edge because I don't want a square edge. I'm just basically pushing wherever. And when you do this with the bubble wrap too, it shows what's underneath the page. Okay, that I don't care what I do with. So now I'm going to dry this, and I'll do this off camera. Okay, not 100% dry, but that's okay. And I'm gonna just cap this gesso. And move that aside, move that aside. Move this aside. Now I'm gonna get a wash going. I'm gonna start with the lightest color, and then I'm gonna work darker. So Hansa Yellow Light. These are all beside each other on the color wheel. Derrelid Yellow. Paranone Orange, And I'm going to skip right over to alizarin crimson, permanent alizarin crimson. And I'm not going to bother with the watercolor medium. I'm just going to go straight with water. Let's just see what happens. So I'm going to paint over the whole thing. Well, that's pretty. And we already know that gesso will hold anything. Look at that texture. Put that in water. If we take a baby wipe, and now I'm just going to pad. And what's being left behind? The acrylics are sticking to the paper where there was no gesso. Where there is gesso, is coming off because I'm wiping it off very, very quickly. For it to stick to the gesso, you'd have to actually let it dry. Oh, neat, eh? Now I'm going to repeat the same thing now. I'm going to go with a smaller brush. I'll just go with this 3/4 inch glaze wash. And, oh, you know what? Let me dry that. Let me dry that. Because we're working with acrylics, it's not water soluble, so it's going to stay. So we're going to start getting, we're going to get glazes and layers and stuff like that. Now I'm just going to come in here. And where's that sponge? Oh, it's not wet enough. Darn, 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 darn. I can use a sponge, especially on the edges because I want them to fade in to what I'm working in. I'll just go past. Let's see if I can just... When you're doing this over the gesso, it's so much easier to remove. A bit of water. All my stuff fell inside my my bucket. There we go. Oh, yeah. Look at that. I think the camera's having a hard time focusing on what I'm doing. Let's bring in a bit more of that bright... Oops, I got some red in there. Not what I want. I don't want any red in here. Okay, see that red? I don't want any of that in there, so I'm just going to leave that in my container, and I'll just go with a fusion brush. I was just being a little too fast. I was just going a little bit too fast. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I love these intense colors sometimes. Most of the times I don't. But this time I do. Now I can take this, go into a little bit of orange, and just a little bit on the outside. Let's get a rough modeling in there. That's a little too rough for me. You know what, I think I'm going to let this dry quickly. This doesn't take long at all. Okay, put that sponge away. Now, where'd we go? Where'd we go? Where'd my brush go? Have to do this fairly quickly. the bubble wrap that has the white on it, the gesso. I don't know if I'm going to get enough in there. And as I start pulling it up now, it's going to start removing some of that paint. Let's see if we got a little bit of white here. There we go. Then go on to the rest of the paper, and it'll the paint that it removed from here to here. And as I'm doing this, the bubble wrap is flattening out because the bubbles are starting to break. And all you need to do with that is just get some fresh bubble wrap paper. You can use this to collage too. That'd be kind of cool. Gonna dry that. Ooh, I got some purple in there. Uh-oh, that purple came off the actual bubble wrap. Now I want to make sure this is fairly dry in some areas. And if I want to see what resist I have, I can, oh yeah, it's coming off. Come in with areas and just rub where I want to distress by removing. And it just removes, where it's going to happen is where the gesso's been. Just make sure you keep going to a clean and fresh baby wipe. Oh, see, now I brought some gesso into here, which actually isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then it's revealing now those gouge lines. Always go to the fresh baby wipe. That's neat. I see, what do I see? I see a fish, a chicken fish. Fish here, and here's the top of the chicken, and there's the mouth of the fish, and there's his eye. Yeah, I know. Okay, and now, oh, I need the roller to do this part. I need a roller to do this part. Just get a little flat roller, and just going to go into the alizarin crimson. Just going to flatten that out a little bit like so, and I'm going to put the bubble wrap in there. Make sure it's nice and bright, whatever you're putting down. I'm going to go right to this corner. So make sure you don't go to the very edges, and that you're not going like this and like this, because you're going to get a shape, unless that's what you're going for. And I will try to use as much as I can, so that way you get different texture looks. There we go, and just one more in here. Cool. Just trying to use whatever I have left. Isn't that amazing? That is so cool. That is so cool. And what you also can do here is you can also drip some acrylics, drip some gesso. You can drip it to make lines. If you have the Americana paint, you can use that as well. The gesso, you can also tint it. So I can take some of this gesso and go into the alizarin crimson that's here. This don't do, because you contaminate your paint. Then I can take it up, load it, okay, on a long palette knife, and then I can drip. Go really low to get lines, or really high if you want to get splats. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that, not too much. I want the thickness to remain. You could easily do this with adding some texture medium. Get the blob going and then just drag it. Hold your palette knife straight up though. And what I'm going to end up doing with this one, ooh, that's going to be a big blob. I'll do some writing along these lines. I want them to be thick and 3D. Don't thin it down too much, because you'll lose the thickness. So once you've got some nice thick spots here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can then take my palette knife and go into the large areas and just drag. And you've got the lines going this way now. Don't forget to go the other way. Drag. You can touch and drag. This is a great way to make lines for writing. And you don't necessarily have to make them all the same shape. You can even take the tip of your palette knife and, oh no, this one's a little too, not quite long enough. I'll have to see if I can go in with this one. And you can curve the lines. There are much easier ways to do this, like let's say like using paper effects, but this is kind of a cool thing to try. It's all about experimenting with the paint products to see what they can do for you. Which is cool. This is actually more into journaling and the actual creation of an art piece than just a background, but I'm going to be using this as a background because I want to use all these lines for writing. That's neat, eh? That is so cool. And the final thing I'm going to do with this now is I can take with the gesso and I'm going to dip some dots. This is the exact same thing as if I was using paper effects. It's the exact same. The only thing is paper effects. The paper effects itself, there isn't a pure white. There is though with the Americana writer, which does the same thing. So this is just an alternative way of getting those effects. I think I want to break up this big, I'll call it ground zero. I'm going to put I'll just go round and round and round. Come on. I know you can do it. Come on. A little bit more. As you see a big blob coming, just go a little bit faster. And when the dripping slows down, just go a little bit slower. When you want to reload, just go back into your container. Just really watch the amount of dripping that takes place. I've got a big blob coming, so I'm going to have to go really, really fast. Ready? Oops, I did make it. That's okay. I'll leave it like that. There we go. That's kind of cool. That is so kind of cool. The other thing that we can do, I think we did this already in another video. I'll use yellow and just splatter. Make sure you splatter the right way. I can drip. This paint is too wet. Actually, the brush was too wet. This is similar to ink. Now let me get a brush that I can actually splatter with. I'll go with the yellow. Dry, and you're going to go bottom up. If you go from top bottom, the bristles are going to flip back in your face. The colors are just a little too. The colors are just a little too similar. Let's see if I can try with this one. Get a bit more water. There we go. Don't add too much water to it or it'll you won't get any type of splattering. That roller in there. There we are. Now if you really want to create some really heavy duty accents, you can take some black. Let me go get my smaller bottle of black. This will be the last thing that we do. I've got chromatic black, which is phthalo green and permanent alizarin crimson, in a little refillable bottle from DecoArt. Now I'm going to start off here first to see if I can get not quite thin enough. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to add a little bit of water to this. Not a lot. Dripping this from the, I'm going to go really high past the camera, squeeze slightly. I'm going to go even a little bit higher than that, and now about past the height of the camera. I'm going to add a bit more water to the container. I need it to splatter a lot more. These little bottles come in so handy. Nice and high. Don't do this when there's any important equipment next to you. Here we go. I actually, if I could stand on a chair, I would. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Let me try back here. I've got my hand really high, just past the camera. I'm just moving my paper. Okay. And with the assumption that everything else was wet, you could spray water and then it would, let's go up here, bloom out, like so. So this is also adding a glaze to everything. Where it blooms out, it's just darkening where it's going around. That's kind of cool. And now I'm going to take my heat gun. I'm not going to dry it thoroughly. Just going to go up nice and high. Start dripping some of this paint. Between the black and yellow, it's going to turn green. Move this out and around. And I'm moving the paint to the edge of the paper because it'll make some nice dark edges. It's following the moisture. Now I am doing this fairly close. And as soon as I see where the paint isn't moving anymore, then I know, okay, I better ease up on the heat gun. Because I don't want to burn the paper. It's starting to happen now where it's not moving too much. Nice and dark, beautiful. And I wonder if I can reach, yeah, I can actually. My treasure box of stuff. And I'm looking for more bubble wrap. And I'm just going to lay that, lift up. Now, what I'm lifting up, now I can go somewhere else and put it down. See? This page is going to be about chaos. Oh, sorry, I cheated. You weren't really supposed to know, because my pages that I do in the Doug project are supposed to be totally random. But it's going to be about chaos. And I'm going to get some actual paper. Go in there, press, remove. I can use this for something else. Whoa, I don't want to disturb this. And what this is doing is where the paint is thick, as I pull it up, it's creating more texture. I don't want to use a baby wipe for this. I want this to be dry. Get some more, but you get a very similar effect to when we were distressing. There we go. This will be a really nice page about chaos. Now, if I want to do any more with this, now would be the time, because the last thing I want to do is I want to drip some fashion beads all over this to really bump up the texture. Oh, the other thing for texture is drywall tape. And I will add a strip of that. Now, it is adhesive, so you will need to put something down on a wet piece. I'll just dry this here. For even more texture. And I'll put it like that. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll end up cutting it. But this has an adhesive built into it. I could actually cut this now. I can take this other piece and put it in the corner so there's no waste. Oops, I cut my actual page. I won't bother with that one. Or I can just trim that. Put it down here. Just like so. Okay. Take a large brush with whatever color you want. I'll just pick the yellow. Then I can just put a little bit of paint in there. Just to kind of hold it. That's not really strong enough, is it? There we go. going to see if I can pull up some of that color. It's too much color. I'm not rubbing because it'll just distribute the paint. I just want to push and pull up. Push and pull up. There we go. And then the last thing I can do, actually, let me just dry this a bit more. Be careful with the heat gun where the drywall tape is. Where's my... I'm going to take my Bristle Bright into some gesso. No, that's not dry yet. I'm just going to dry this a bit more off camera. Okay. Gesso. I'm just going to go through here. Be careful how much pressure you use for this. We are going to wipe some of it back. We're going to obscure stuff. You can use titanium white for this. That's fine. I just love the toothiness of the gesso. And have a stencil ready. Now, how far down can I go? See how dusty it makes everything look? You can take this and just go over the drywall tape. That'll make that even softer. If you put quite a bit of paint on here and just drag it, it'll only grab at the top. Oops, I picked up some orange. Now, I'm going to grab a stencil. Well, it's not a real stencil. With a baby wipe. And I can remove the gesso. Depending on how hard you push, you can actually bring it down back to the paper. And depending on how much your stuff is dried. I don't want to bring it down too far. It's not really visible. Not totally visible. That's because the gesso is really thin. But that's okay. There, now it's a bit more visible. And the last thing I want to do is I want to take some fashion beads. There's actually silver beads in this. And I'm just going to go around. This takes quite a bit to dry. And I'm just going to make scrolls. This will dry clear. You can do this with glue and glitter, or even the paper effects. If I want to take this one, I'm going to go right on top. I think I'm probably in the way, but this is the only way to do it. Whoops. That one didn't turn out very well. Let's just fix that up. There we go. And it's going to stay textured like that. Pretty cool, eh? I'm going to put little tippy dots, the little trailing things. Just wanted to make sure I had something that was trailing. That one did not turn out very well. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. See how easy that is to clean up? There we go. Let's try that again. Just release. There we go. Cool. And let's just do this one more. The tip I cut a little bit too hard, like too far down the shaft. So this is quite large. There we go. Alrighty. That's going to be mega, mega, mega thick. Mega thick. And what color did I mix up? In another video, I mixed up some phthalo blue. In another video, I mixed up some phthalo blue with water. And I have this, come on, where is it? I've got this really cool torn cardboard. Now this will be hard and I'm sure it's going to be messy. So if I just want to lay that just slightly on top, preferably over something that's not important. How cool is that? And just come in here. There we go. This will take, oh, I would give it probably about a day to dry. This I'm going to now turn upside down in my garbage can to clean out the nozzle so it doesn't clog up. So I'm going to clean everything up and we'll come back in about 24 hours when this is dried and then you can see what it looks like. Alright, so back in a bit. So it's been about 24 hours. Now it's still a slightly bit tacky, but you can see how this is becoming more transparent and all the color in the background is starting to show through. Now I'm going to get as close as I can, but I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. All the sparkles inside the stroke work. See if I can tilt that a little bit. There you go, you can see it now. Very dimensional. Very beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So this is just another great way to add some texture and just some bling to your piece without actually gluing anything down. This is actually a background page that's a bit more it's closer to a journal page, but just wanted to kind of show you all the different things that you can do. So now this is the last page in the Strathmore Journal, and although I do have a few more techniques that I want to show you, I'll be showing you those on in a different book setup. And I also, now my next step is to take this background paper, that's here, this background paper, and going to bind it, glue it down to the covers in the journal. I have no idea if I'm going to use it the way it is or if I'm going to build upon it, but I want to customize the covers to my own, and I'll be doing that in the next set of videos. So I hope that you enjoyed this workshop and that you'll give it a try. Feel free to substitute products, change things up. Make sure you read health and safety labels on the products, but break the rules and see if things work together. After all, it's all about experimenting and finding what works for you. So until next time, for the next video, I'd like you to stay inspired and feel free to visit me at artplace.ca and fire me off some comments for suggestions of things you'd like to learn or experiment with, but you're not quite sure where to go. All right, so see you next time.